A horse named Apollo. He wasn't just any horse. He was the horse everyone had given up on. His story was whispered, a cautionary tale. He was powerful, yes, but wild, unpredictable, dangerous, some said. The kind of horse that cost trainers and owners alike a fortune in repairs and shattered nerves. They'd tried everything: gentle hands, firm discipline, different feed, new routines. Nothing worked. Apollo just bucked, bolted, and retreated into himself. Each attempt ended the same way: frustration, defeat, and Apollo, alone in his stall, a prisoner of his own spirit. He was a magnificent creature, built for speed and strength, but his wild heart was too much for anyone to tame. The word unreadable was attached to his name like a brand. He was a beautiful, expensive mistake. He was nearing the end of his usefulness, and soon the whispers would turn to something far more permanent. He was destined for the cheap sale lot, or worse. But a different fate was waiting, one that no one at the stable could have ever predicted. A fate that began with a small girl, a whisper of hope, and a shared, silent understanding. This is not just a story about a horse. It's about seeing what others miss. It's about courage found in unexpected places. It's about a bond so strong it could change everything. It's about Apollo, the horse nobody wanted, and the blind girl who saw him clearer than anyone else. The girl's name was Catherine. She was 9 years old, and her world was a symphony of sounds, textures, and scents. Catherine was born blind. Her eyes couldn't see the world, but her heart felt it. She navigated life with a grace and awareness that often surprised those around her. She loved horses, not the thrill of riding, but the gentle giants themselves. She loved the rumble of their chests, the soft nuzzle of their muzzles, the rhythmic sway of their bodies when they walked. She would spend hours at the local rescue center, her small hands tracing the powerful muscles of horses, listening to their breaths, learning their personalities through touch and sound. She had a particular gift. She could sense a horse's mood, its fears, its joys, its pain, without seeing a single flicker of an eye or a twitch of an ear. It was as if their inner lives were laid bare to her. One day, her father, a kind man who always supported her unique connection with animals, took her to a larger, more exclusive riding stable. It was a place for serious riders, a place where horses were not just pets, but investments. Catherine, usually so at ease, felt a shift in the energy. This place was different. The horses here seemed tense. And then she heard it, a low, frustrated whinny from the back of the stable, followed by a muffled thud and the sound of a man swearing. "That's Apollo," her father whispered, his voice tinged with a familiar weariness. "They say he's impossible." Catherine's small face tilted, her ears straining. She could hear it clearly, a deep, agitated energy radiating from that one stall. It wasn't just anger, it was fear and a profound loneliness. "He's sad," Catherine stated, her voice soft but firm. Her father sighed. "He's more than sad, Catherine Bug. He's dangerous. No one can ride him." Catherine's hand tightened on her father's arm. Can I just listen to him?" she asked. Her father hesitated, then nodded. He knew better than to say no when Catherine felt a pull. They walked slowly towards Apollo's stall. Even from a distance, the horse's presence was powerful. Catherine could feel the nervous energy vibrating through the wooden beams of the stable. As they got closer, she heard the distinctive sound of Apollo pacing, his hooves a heavy, irregular rhythm on the straw. He was large, magnificent. She could feel his sheer size through the floorboards, but beneath the power, she sensed a deep well of pain. She stopped a few feet from his stall door, her father standing close, ready to pull her back if needed. Apollo whickered, a low, questioning sound. Catherine held out her hand, palm open, not trying to touch, just offering. "Hello," she whispered. Apollo took a step forward, then another. He stopped just inches from her outstretched hand. Catherine could feel the heat radiating from his body. She could hear the quick, uneven beat of his heart. He was tense, coiled, ready to spring away or lash out. But Catherine didn't flinch. She just stood there, breathing softly, her presence calm and steady. She could feel his suspicion, his wariness. He'd been hurt, betrayed, misunderstood. "It's okay," she murmured, her voice a gentle current in the tense air. "I hear you." Apollo shifted his weight. He was trying to understand this small, scent-filled presence. He lowered his head, slowly, hesitantly. Catherine felt a breath of warm air on her fingertips. It was Apollo smelling her, testing her. He didn't shy away. He didn't snort or kick. He just stood there, breathing. Catherine could feel the rapid pulse in his throat. He was a storm, waiting to break, but for the first time he wasn't raging. He was curious, and that curiosity was a tiny spark in the darkness. Her father watched, stunned. He had seen trainers with years of experience struggle to get within 10 feet of Apollo without him erupting. Yet here was his daughter, a blind child, standing calmly beside the beast, and Apollo was still. The stable owner, a gruff man named Mr. Henderson, watched from a distance, arms crossed. He'd seen this before. The hopeful few who thought they could understand Apollo, they always ended up disappointed or worse. He scoffed quietly, muttering under his breath, "Cute, but it won't last. That horse is a lost cause." He knew Apollo's history, the numerous failed training attempts, the injuries, the sheer cost. Apollo was meant to be a champion racehorse, but his spirit was too fiery, too independent. Every trainer had tried to break him, to force him into submission. They saw his power as defiance, his fear as aggression. They never saw the underlying pain. They never truly listened. Apollo was a magnificent animal, a stunning blend of muscle and spirit, but his heart was a wild, untamed thing. He was too much for anyone who tried to control him. He had been sold and resold, each time with more warnings, more scars. Now he was here, a problem for this stable. Mr. Henderson saw him as a liability, a walking, talking financial drain. He was contemplating the options, none of them good. A cheap sale to an unsuspecting novice? A one-way trip to the slaughterhouse? The thought left a sour taste in his mouth. He valued his reputation, and Apollo was a stain on it. Catherine, however, was oblivious to his skepticism. She continued her quiet communion with Apollo. Her small hand was still extended, and Apollo's muzzle was inches away. His warm breath caressing her skin. She could feel the tension in his muscles, the slight tremor that ran through him. It wasn't aggression. It was pure, raw fear. He had learned that the closer he got to people, the more likely he was to be hurt, controlled, or punished. And Catherine, with her heightened senses, felt every bit of that fear. "You're scared," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They hurt you, didn't they? They didn't understand." Apollo let out a soft sigh, a gust of air that ruffled Catherine's hair. It was a sound of profound weariness, a confirmation of her words. He nudged her hand gently, not a playful gesture, but a tentative touch, a question. "You understand?" Catherine smiled, a radiant, knowing smile. "Yes," she said, "I understand." Her father watched, his heart swelling, with a mixture of pride and a touch of bewildered awe. He had always known Catherine was special, but this was something else. He saw the way Apollo relaxed slightly under her non-demanding presence. The horse wasn't ready to be ridden, wasn't ready to be tamed, but he was ready to be. And Catherine was offering him that. She wasn't trying to fix him or control him. She was simply accepting him, just as he was. Mr. Henderson, however, remained unconvinced. He walked over, a forced smile on his face. "Well, well, little lady," he said, his voice patronizing. "Looks like you've got away with him, but don't get too comfortable. That horse has a mind of his own, a dangerous mind." Catherine turned her head slightly, her sightless eyes seeming to pierce through him. "He's not dangerous," she said, her voice gaining a quiet strength. "He's just misunderstood and very sad." Mr. Henderson's smile faltered. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially by a child. Sad or not, he's a problem that needs to be solved. He looked at Apollo, then back at Catherine, a flicker of an idea sparking in his eyes. A dangerous idea. An idea that involved risk, but also potentially a way to offload his biggest headache. Tell you what, he said, his tone shifting. Your father seems to believe in you. I'm intrigued. Maybe, just maybe, there's a chance here. A slim one, but a chance. He looked at Apollo, then at Catherine. How about this? You want to spend time with Apollo? Fine, but not just listening. You want to help him? Then you have to try. You have to spend time with him every day. Let's see if your understanding can do what years of training couldn't. Let's see if this little blind girl can tame the beast. The challenge hung in the air, heavy with unspoken doubt and a glimmer of desperate hope. For Apollo, it was another gamble. For Catherine, it was an invitation to connect with a kindred spirit. For Mr. Henderson, it was a calculated risk, a chance to watch a fairy tale unfold, or more likely, witness another spectacular failure. But he was willing to let it play out, for now. Catherine's father, though hesitant, saw the earnestness in his daughter's eyes. He also saw the glint of opportunism in Mr. Henderson's. Catherine, are you sure? He asked. Catherine nodded, her expression resolute. Yes, Daddy, I have to try. He needs me. Mr. Henderson, seeing the agreement, clapped his hands together, the sound sharp in the quiet stable. Excellent. So it's settled. You come every day, Catherine. You spend time with him. Groom him, talk to him, just be near him. And when I say the word, we'll try putting a saddle on him. Then maybe, just maybe, we'll try riding him. But remember, he added, his voice dropping to a more serious tone, this is Apollo. He's got a temper. If he acts up, it's your father's responsibility. You understand? Catherine nodded, her small hand still resting near Apollo's muzzle. Apollo, sensing the shift in energy, let out a soft snort, but he didn't pull away. He seemed to be listening, understanding that something important was happening. The days that followed were a quiet revolution in Apollo's world. Catherine arrived every afternoon, her father always close by, a silent guardian. She didn't try to force anything. Her approach was one of patient, unwavering acceptance. She would approach Apollo's stall, and he would whicker a greeting, a sound that gradually lost its edge of agitation and gained a note of anticipation. She would spend an hour or more just grooming him. Her touch was feather-light, yet firm and confident. She moved over his massive body, her hands tracing the lines of his muscles, feeling the knots of tension beneath his skin. She'd talk to him, her voice a low, soothing murmur, narrating her actions, telling him about her day, about the birds she heard singing, about the warmth of the sun on her face. That's a big muscle, Apollo, she'd say, her fingers working gently. You carry so much strength in you. No wonder they pushed you so hard, but it must have hurt. Apollo would stand surprisingly still, often leaning into her touch. He would sigh, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to release some of the pent-up stress he carried. Catherine could feel the difference. The horse that had been a coil of tightly wound fear was slowly, imperceptibly, beginning to unwind. Mr. Henderson would watch, a skeptical frown etched on his face. He'd seen Apollo lash out at seasoned handlers, but with Catherine, the horse was docile. He'd seen Apollo refuse food, but now he'd nuzzle Catherine's hand, looking for a treat. He'd seen Apollo pace his stall relentlessly, but now he'd stand quietly, seemingly content to just have Catherine near. It baffled him. He couldn't comprehend the power of a connection built on empathy rather than dominance. He kept expecting the explosion, the inevitable failure, but it never came. Catherine's father, seeing this progress, began to relax his vigilance slightly, though he never left Catherine's side. He saw the subtle changes in Apollo's demeanour, the softening of his eyes, the loosening of his jaw, the occasional flick of his tail that seemed more curious than annoyed. "He's listening to you, Catherine," he'd whisper, amazed. One afternoon, about a week into their daily visits, Catherine decided to try something new. She had always felt Apollo's deep-seated fear of anything touching his back. It was a physical manifestation of the pain he had endured from harsh riders and ill-fitting saddles. "Apollo," she said softly, her hand resting on his neck. "Today we're going to try something different, but only if you want to." Apollo nudged her hand, a gentle affirmation. Catherine then took a soft folded blanket from her father. She approached Apollo slowly, her movements deliberate. She could feel his muscles tense slightly as the blanket neared him. "It's just a blanket, Apollo," she murmured. "Soft, like a cloud. Nothing to be afraid of." She draped the blanket over his back, her touch incredibly gentle. Apollo stood perfectly still, his ears flicking forward, trying to process the new sensation. Catherine kept her hands on the blanket, feeling his reaction. There was a tremor, a slight tightening, but no bolt, no buck, no rage. He stood, breathing through it. Catherine stayed like that for several minutes, her presence a steady anchor. Finally, she slowly removed the blanket. Apollo let out a long, slow breath. It was a victory, small but significant. Catherine's father squeezed her shoulder, his eyes shining. Mr. Henderson, watching from his office doorway, shook his head in disbelief. He was starting to think this blind girl might actually have a chance. The impossible was beginning to seem possible. The next phase was even more delicate. Mr. Henderson, seeing Catherine's success, grew impatient. He wanted to see a saddle on Apollo, to see if the horse could actually be ridden. He brought out a lightweight, well-padded training saddle, one he'd had custom made for Apollo years ago. Catherine's father was apprehensive. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Henderson?" he asked. "He's come so far. I don't want to push him. Too fast." Mr. Henderson waved a dismissive hand. "We've gone far enough with the petting and whispering. It's time for action. Catherine, you're the only one he trusts. You'll be right there, won't you?" Catherine nodded, her determination unwavering. She understood the risks, but she also understood Apollo. "We'll take it slow," she told Apollo, her voice calm and reassuring. "Just like the blanket. Slowly." With Catherine guiding Apollo's head and her father helping to position the saddle gently, they began. Apollo stood still as the saddle was carefully placed on his back. Catherine could feel his heart hammering against her hand. His body was rigid, every muscle tense. She could feel the fear surging through him, the memory of past trauma almost palpable. "It's okay, Apollo," she whispered, stroking his neck. "I'm here. I'm right here." She encouraged him to walk around the confined space of his stall, the saddle, a foreign weight on his back. Apollo moved tentatively, his steps short and jerky. He would stop, listen, and then take another cautious step. Catherine walked beside him, her hand on his shoulder, her voice a constant soothing presence. "Good boy, Apollo. You're doing so well. Just feel the weight. It's not trying to hurt you." Mr. Henderson watched, pacing outside the stall. He was a bundle of nerves. This was the moment of truth. For weeks he'd been looking for a way to unload Apollo. If Catherine could just get him to tolerate a saddle, then maybe, just maybe, he could find a buyer who wouldn't sue him. The thought of Apollo being ridden again sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. He wanted to jump in, to rush the process, but he knew, with a grudging respect, that Catherine's patient approach was the only thing that might work. After what felt like an eternity, Apollo seemed to relax slightly. His gait became a little smoother. He even let out a soft whicker. Catherine felt a surge of triumph. "He's accepting it," she exclaimed to her father. He smiled, relief flooding his face. "He trusts you, Catherine. He really trusts you." Mr. Henderson, seeing this, could barely contain himself. "All right, that's enough for today," he declared, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Tomorrow, we'll try getting on him." Catherine's father's face fell. "On him? Mr. Henderson, I don't think." "Nonsense," Henderson interrupted. "This is progress. We can't stop now. Catherine, you've done amazing work. Tomorrow you'll get on. Your father will be right there, holding his head." Catherine looked at Apollo, sensing his residual unease despite the progress. "Apollo," she whispered, "can you do this? Can you carry me?" Apollo nudged her cheek gently. It wasn't a wholehearted yes, but it was an agreement to try. The next day was a culmination of weeks of careful work. The air in the stable was electric with anticipation. Catherine, dressed in riding clothes her father had bought for her, stood beside Apollo. The saddle was on, cinched comfortably. Her father was beside her, his hand on Apollo's bridle, his other hand ready to guide Catherine. Mr. Henderson stood nearby, his eyes fixed on the scene, a mixture of skepticism and eager anticipation. Catherine took a deep breath. "Okay, Apollo," she murmured, "we're going to try, just like we practiced." She reached for the stirrup, her fingers finding the leather. Apollo stood firm. Catherine's father lifted her, and she swung her leg over, settling herself carefully into the saddle. For a moment, she just sat there, a small, quiet presence on the back of the powerful horse. She closed her eyes, focusing on her senses. She could feel Apollo's powerful body beneath her, his muscles tensing and releasing with each breath. She could hear his heartbeat, strong and steady now, a comforting rhythm. She felt the slight sway as he adjusted his weight. It was a different sensation than being on the ground, but it wasn't frightening. It felt natural. Her father kept a firm grip on the reins, guiding Apollo in a slow, steady walk around the arena. "Easy, boy," he murmured. "Good, just like that." Catherine, her hands resting lightly on Apollo's mane, began to talk to him. "See, Apollo, you can carry me. It's not so bad. We're just walking. You're being so brave." Apollo responded to her voice. His steps became smoother, more confident. He even let out a soft, contented sigh. Mr. Henderson, watching this from the fence, was dumbfounded. He'd seen Apollo buck riders off in seconds, sending them flying. But here was Catherine, a blind child, sitting peacefully on his back, and Apollo was behaving like a gentle giant. He walked over, his usual gruff demeanor softened by awe. "Well, I'll be," he muttered. "She's actually doing it." Catherine continued to talk to Apollo, her voice a steady anchor. She guided him with the gentle pressure of her legs, the subtle shifts of her weight, and the sound of her voice. Apollo responded, his movements becoming more fluid. He seemed to understand her cues, to anticipate her gentle requests. It was a dance, a silent conversation between horse and rider, mediated by trust and understanding. Catherine felt a profound sense of connection, a unity with Apollo that transcended the physical. She could feel his power, but also his willingness, his desire to please her. He wasn't being forced. He was cooperating. It was a beautiful, breathtaking sight. After a while, her father allowed Catherine to guide Apollo herself, with him walking alongside, ready to intervene. Catherine, using gentle pressure and soft whispers, directed Apollo. He responded instantly, turning, stopping, and moving at her subtle commands. It was a revelation. Mr. Henderson watched, his jaw hanging open. He had spent a fortune on trainers, on equipment, on trying to break Apollo's spirit. And here was a blind girl with no formal training who had achieved what he considered impossible. He saw not just a horse being ridden, but a transformation unfolding before his eyes. Apollo, the horse everyone gave up on, was finally free, not from a saddle, but from the cage of his own fear and distrust. And Catherine, the girl who saw with her heart, was the one who had unlocked the door. The bond between them was undeniable, a testament to the power of empathy and believing in the impossible. Catherine and Apollo's journey wasn't about winning races or performing complex maneuvers. It was about something far more profound, healing and connection. Catherine taught Apollo to trust again, to believe that not all human touch brought pain or control. News of Catherine and Apollo spread like wildfire through the local equestrian community. Skeptics turned into believers, and doubters became admirers. People who had known Apollo as the problem horse now saw him as a symbol of hope. Catherine and Apollo became a familiar sight, their rides gentle and unhurried, a ballet of trust and understanding. Catherine's father would often walk beside them, a proud smile on his face, his heart brimming with gratitude for his extraordinary daughter. Mr. Henderson, transformed by the experience, became a surprisingly protective advocate for the pair. He saw Apollo not as a financial burden, but as a living testament to his daughter's unique gift. He even refused several lucrative offers to buy Apollo, something the old Mr. Henderson would never have done. "Apollo's not for sale," he'd say firmly, a new respect in his voice. "He's found his home. He's found his girl." Catherine and Apollo's journey wasn't about winning races or performing complex maneuvers. It was about something far more profound: healing and connection. Catherine taught Apollo to trust again, to believe that not all human touch brought pain or control. And in return, Apollo gave Catherine a connection to the world that words couldn't describe. She could feel his strength, his spirit, his joy as they moved together. He was her eyes, her legs, her freedom. Their rides became a sanctuary for both of them, a place where they could simply be, understood and accepted. They proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from dominance, but from vulnerability. That true understanding transcends sight. That a horse everyone gave up on could find his purpose, not in breaking his spirit, but in sharing it with someone who finally saw its beauty. The whispers about Apollo no longer spoke of a wild, unrideable beast. Instead, they told the tale of a horse reborn. They spoke of the quiet strength of a blind girl who saw the truth in his wild heart. They spoke of a bond that defied expectations, a partnership forged in empathy and trust. Apollo, once a symbol of failure, became a symbol of hope. He stood tall and proud in his pasture, no longer a prisoner of his past, but a testament to the power of believing in the impossible. And Catherine, the little girl with the extraordinary heart, continued to ride, her laughter echoing through the fields, a melody of joy and connection, proving that sometimes the most profound journeys are the ones taken by those who see with their souls. Their story became a legend, a reminder that every creature, no matter how broken they may seem, deserves a chance to be understood, a chance to be loved, and a chance to find their place in the world. And that sometimes all it takes is one person to believe, one person to listen, and one person to reach out a hand, not to control, but to connect. Their story reminds us that true strength lies in compassion, and that the most powerful bonds are often forged in the quietest moments of understanding. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of courage and connection. What animal has shown you the power of unseen understanding? Let us know in the comments below.